Good evening, everybody, and good morning, respected sir. Uh, we feel honored to have you in this webinar, and from ABCLPG, we thank you for accepting our invitation, sir. Uh, Professor Jagdish said needs no introduction, but to complete the formality, I need to introduce you, sir. With your permission, uh, Professor Sheth is Charles F. Kellstadt Professor of Business in the Goizueta Business School at Emory University. He is globally known for his scholarly contributions in consumer behavior, relationship marketing, competitive strategy, and geopolitical analysis. So, as I was telling you earlier, being from marketing area, I have been growing in academics after reading by reading your textbooks as well as articles. So, thank you, sir. Thanks for writing such kind of articles and books. Professor Sheth has over 50 years of combined experience in teaching and research at the University of Southern California, the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, Columbia University, MIT, and Emory University. Dr. Sheth has been on the board of several companies, including Nordstrom, Ryerson International, and Pro Limited. He has been advisor to numerous companies, including Whirlpool, Motorola, Texas Instrumentations, etc. His two books, Rule of Three and The Accidental Scholar, which was published in 2014, has inspired many in their different domains. Other than all these excellent credentials, Sheth is the founder and chairman of the Academy of Indian Marketing, which supports research and scholarship among Indian scholars in marketing and management. Thank you, sir, and welcome to this webinar as a speaker.
Thank you.
Now, let me introduce our Honorable Director, sir, Professor Sailendra Singh. He himself is an eminent scholar and able leadership. Under his guidance, IIM Ranchi has been scaling heights every day, and we are quite fortunate to work under him and to learn from him every day. Thank you, sir. Welcome to this webinar. Now, let me introduce Mr. Jayant sir. He is the Executive Director of Academy of Indian Marketing. Mr. Jayant sir is Chartered Accountant and an Associate Member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India since 1982. A graduate in Commerce and Law, Mr. Jay has varied experience in organizational and management consultancy. Presently, along with Mr. Jayan Shah is also instrumental in the formation of Academy of Indian Marketing and is associated with Shah and is dedicated to furthering the vision and mission of the Academy. Welcome, sir.
Thank
Thanks a
you.
lot for joining this webinar. And
It's my pleasure and privilege.
finally, let me introduce today's moderator, Professor Anshuman Hazarika. He is from General Management area at IIM Ranchi, and he has expertise in business law. So he will be moderating the session, and I forgot to introduce myself, sir. I am Professor Anand Mishra. I am from marketing area, as I told you earlier. So I am from marketing area, and I have been learning from you since the start. I today also I look forward to learn about education, national education policy 2020 from you. Thank you, sir. Now over to Professor Hazarika.
Thank you, Professor Mishra. It is indeed a privilege for me to be a part of such an august gathering and to welcome Professor Sheth, our respected director, sir, and Mr. Shah. So, to start off the event, I would like to request our honorable director to present an introduction of IIM Ranchi and the center. Thank you, sir.
So, let me first thank Professor Jagdish Seth for taking out the valuable time from his busy schedule for the webinar. I look forward to hear you from you, sir, on new national education policy 2020 and how it is going to impact the higher education scenario in the country. let me also take opportunity to appraise about IIM Ranchi. IIM Ranchi belongs to distinguished league of business schools called Indian Institutes of Management. We are considered ninth sibling in the large family of 20. We got incorporated in 2009 and started our operation in July in 2010 with a meager strength of 44 and one program that is called MBA today, but earlier flagship PGP program. Today we have 5 programs, degree awardee programs like Human Resource Management MBA, we have PhD, we have executive PhD program, and for continuing education executive program, we call it PGXP, 2-year part-time program. We also have postdoctoral fellowship, and we have a certificate program called certificate program for executives. We are the first signatory among IIMs for UNPRME. We are also looking forward to accreditation of AACSB and other international agencies. As far as our status is concerned, in national ranking framework that we call NIRF, we have earned 20th position this year, and our vision is Bahumukh Vikaso Gantavya. That means we are aspiring for multi-dimensional development, and our students are making mark through their leadership and managerial acumen world over. Within the institute framework, we have started Atal Bihari Vajpayee Center for Leadership Policy and Governance. In 2018, precisely on 20th August, in the name of the statesperson of the country, Bharat Ratna, who has given the great line of thought, and his birthday is called Good Governance Day. So that line we have taken for our institute. And the center aspires to develop itself in terms of think tank and produce policy formulators. And in the long run, we are aspiring to have a 2-year postgraduate program in policy and governance. Currently, we are undertaking many researches based on policy, both at the state government level and national government level. We are also trying to impact the policy of state and center through our researches, through our seminars, and now more popularly webinars. Because of the pandemic, we are now conducting many webinars, and this year we had already very high-powered panel on education policy, and Professor Sheth and Professor Shah, we are looking forward to your deliberation on education policy 2020. I also welcome all the participant and faculty colleagues, especially Professor Mishra and Professor Hajarika, to take the initiative for this kind of program. So over to Professor Hajarika.
Thank you.
Have you here today for the webinar. I would now like to request Mr. Jayant Shah to please present an introduction on the Academy of Indian Marketing and also enlighten us about its functions.
Thank you, Professor Hajarika, for inviting me for this exciting webinar today, which is being addressed by Dr. Jagdish N and how can I say that what privilege I have to side by side. And so it is my honor and privilege to speak to all of you. And today, Academy of Indian Marketing, again, it was established in 2009 as a non-profit company. And it was the vision and mission of Dr. Jagdish N to give it back to the society. So he was the founder and he is today the founder chairman of Academy of Indian Marketing. And with his efforts, these schools in India are the members of Academy of Indian Marketing. Academy of Indian Marketing main vision is all about research and focus on research in the area of marketing. And no body at that time was there which can take this forward. And today in this new education policy, the government has emphasized on research-oriented universities. But it was way back in 2009 when Dr. Sheth envisioned the Academy of Indian Marketing as a body to promote the research in India in the area of marketing. And we are doing so many initiatives in this area. So the first and foremost was to start the AIM AMA Sheth Foundation Doctoral Consortium. As you all know, AMA Sheth Foundation Doctoral Consortium is running there from 1966 in US. And it never ventured out of US, and anybody who wanted to attend the doctoral consortium in the area of marketing, they had to travel to US, and that only if you are an invited person, then only you can attend it. So it was kind of a privilege for anybody to be invited over there, even as a faculty and as a doctoral scholar both. So 100 top doctoral scholars and about 100 top faculties from all over the world were invited to this doctoral consortium. But when we established Academy of Indian Marketing, Dr. Sheth thought that India, being underprivileged country, how the researchers from India can benefit from this doctoral consortium. So he convinced the board of AMA Sheth Foundation to allow us to organize doctoral consortium. And from 2012, we have been organizing this doctoral consortium at different institutes of our institutions who are the member of AIM. So far we have concluded a doctoral consortium. The first one was at Alliance University, the second was at IIM Ahmedabad, the third one was at IMT Dubai, the fourth one was at IMT Ghaziabad, fifth one was at Wellinkar in Mumbai, sixth one was at Wellinkar in Bangalore, the seventh was at Maika, Ahmedabad, and then eighth one was at BIMTech recently this year in Noida. And next we are planning again, and that is not going to be physical because of this COVID situation. So we are planning online doctoral consortium in July, sometimes coming year 2021. And most likely it is going to be IFIM, who is the institution, going to be the host institution. So out of these 40 top B schools, 7 are all IIMs, and all the top IIMs which were founded earlier. So IIM Ahmedabad, Bangalore, Calcutta, Lucknow, Indore, they are our member. And then recent new ones which were added. So IIM Raipur and IIM Jammu is also our members. And as Dr. Shailendra, the director, mentioned that IIM Ranchi is also aspiring to get AACSB accreditation. So let me tell you that today, as on today, 14 institutions have been given accreditation of AACSB. Out of that, 12 AACSB accredited institutions are member of AIM out of the 40. So I hope sometimes IIM Ranchi can also join as a member of AIM and join the activities. We also conduct special faculty development workshop in these areas and the conference also. So we conducted faculty and we bring faculty from abroad to do this faculty development workshop. We did one in 2018 at Jindal Global Business School, where we invited almost 12 faculties from abroad, and it was a 5-day workshop. Thereafter, we did one on with Dr. Ajay Kohli, and that was at IIM Calcutta. We did one with Dr. Venki Shankar at IIM Lucknow. So this is the kind of workshops we are doing, and our main job is to further the cause of research in the area of marketing. Dr. Sheth has been generous enough to get from the board of Sheth Foundation in US to get a grant of $10,000 every year. And now we have instituted that inviting research papers, and those who want, they can participate in the Sheth Research Grant proposal. So when you submit your proposal and if it is selected, we select 3 different areas of marketing, and in each areas we select 2 papers. So total 6 grants are given to the people who want to highlight their proposal and carry on the research. So it is not that after you publish in the top journals that you get your grant, but we give the grant upfront so that they have enough resources to carry on their research in a better way. And they are not deprived of money for any reason. So these are the basic activities. And I would not like to take much of the time because we all are eager to listen and learn from Dr. Jagdish Sheth. And I would like to conclude my talk here. Anytime you want to get in touch with me, you can please call me or mail me and I'll reply back to you. Thank you very much. And again, inviting me to give this special address about sharing the activities of Academy of Indian Marketing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Shah. It's indeed our pleasure to host you. But moving on, now we would like to move on to our main topic for the day, that is the webinar on the National Education Policy 2020. And we'd like to request Professor Sheth to begin with his opening words on what are his first thoughts on the National Education Policy 2020.
Thank you so much, and I'm glad to be here. I think the new IIMs have enormous potential. They don't have the legacy behind them, and this policy document becomes very timely in terms of shaping their future. I'll make about 4 or 5 main comments or highlights of what I saw in the document, and then we can go into specific questions and answers. I like more questions and answers than presentations. First of all, this is probably the most transformative and ambitious national policy in education ever created by the government since our independence, or independence, or starting the constitutionally based country. It is going to have more transformation on regulation. The higher education really was regulated, as you know, under the British system by University Grants Commission. We came out with AICTE, which is a postgraduate degree under which IIMs and others will fall. But I think it's going to have a huge impact on governance in the following way. And the document clearly says less governance by outside is better. So it's governance, but very light, which will allow more freedom for experimentation, for innovation by different institutions. Sounds almost like a market-based approach, not necessarily the license-based approach. It's going to change the landscape of the whole industry for higher education across all disciplines. The landscape will change because players that we thought through policy and licensing may not be there, and the players we never thought will be in India will be there. Most likely, many foreign universities now will come to India because of their new framework, which allows more flexibility, more whatever you want to do kind of a notion, and more likely research-oriented universities will come first, is our forecast, and I'll get into specifics. It'll be definitely creating an environment where India gets globally integrated. Indian economy has been getting globally integrated since 1991 reforms and more recently, but I think this will be the last push where a lot of talent of India, higher education based, will be not only for the Indian economy, but for the world economy. In fact, in the professional services, IT services, it is already happening. Today, the largest employers of our IT professionals in India are by foreign multinationals, such as Accenture, Microsoft, Google, etc. And of course, they need that capacity and capabilities, not only for the domestic market in India, but also for the global market, wherever they are. So that's very key. Those are the 3 key dimensions. It'll be more transformative if it is executed right. Always the issue is that policy is fine, but then depends upon the government, environmental issues, external factors, and how it gets implemented. First major consequence of this one will be it will liberate huge excess capacity. There are a lot of inefficiencies. In management alone, we have 4,000 management institutes. And if you look at the enrollments, except for the top 100, most of them have no enrollment. They're just empty spaces. So you have a huge physical capacity, huge, surprisingly, faculty capacity. On the one hand, we feel like there's a faculty shortage. On the other hand, there's a huge surplus of faculty. So I think it will release the excess capacity, which is created by disciplines like the management discipline versus engineering discipline versus liberal arts discipline. Now it begins to allow capacity to go across silos created by disciplines, created by institutions. Each institution builds their own capacity. So each institution is more like a small business, medium-sized business, but is not in a scale of the kinds of universities you see on a global basis. So how can we create a scale out of the industry? We have the size, but we don't have the scale. I think it will have a huge impact in terms of either alliances within the US and within the Indian universities and colleges, or actually mergers and acquisitions even, is the forecast. And of course, it will create excess capacity, which is now locked in by regulation. For example, AICT regulation says that you can only have so many students. We in the beginning prove that there is a market out there. It's a very slow process. I think this changes enormously to allow more innovation, more experimentation as an outcome. The third key area is that it is really more and more student-centric. If you look at the higher education and management especially, it is driven by the regulation on the one hand and by the policy on the other hand, and it turns out to be more and more, it's basically low technology industry. We are more brick and mortar than we want to admit today. We are as brick and mortar as a retailer, for example. We require residency requirements for students to come and stay with you on the campus for 2 years. And this very brick and mortar approach is very low tech approach. So the new document will encourage more and more high tech approach, and I'll come to that, as well as in fact more student centric as opposed to curriculum centric or institution centric. And the key dimension in student centric is to increase the students' affordability and accessibility. Students will have now credit that they can carry across institutions, which is not possible otherwise. So it is a very interesting key area. Fourth consequence is going to be very strong encouragement of online education, what the document calls open distance learning, ODL. I think online education will be now more mainstream than ever before. And I know we will have a question on that one. I'll elaborate at that time. But online education is more to provide access in places where students don't have to come to a major academic hub or an institution. Education goes where the students are. Fundamental shift. And of course, surprisingly, it's more affordable. And surprisingly, the experiments in the rest of the world are showing that accreditation bodies are accepting online education. Unlike the old days when NIIT was the only skill-based online education, very fundamentally transformative on the society as a whole. So online education will be accredited upfront. And many of them are very successful in management. Probably the most successful online education has been the MBA degree from University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. They decided in their environment, a brick and mortar, which means physical presence of students, even commuting students, is just not viable. In the competition for the MBAs, and our MBA programs in America are actually in plateau and a decline. So it's getting into bifurcation. Very specialized programs are doing very well, or large reputed institutions, mostly private universities, are doing very well. But if you have a state university located in a remote place like Urbana-Champaign, which is an engineering college, the program is not sustainable. So they had the courage to abolish full-time 2-year MBA, executive MBA even, when they tried to do that in New York, Chicago, and immediately they started the online education, and today they must have more than 2,000 students from all over the world. Institution reputation. University of Illinois is one of the best institutions in engineering, in software, hardware, everything you talk about it. So they are able to leverage that very well for their management education. And apparently it's a huge success. And ASCSB, the accreditation body, is inviting University of Illinois to tell other universities, management institutes, how to create an online MBA with quality assurance so it meets the accreditation criteria, meets the market demand criteria, and at the same time drops the price by almost half essentially in the process. This is a very fascinating one. So online education will become more respected. It is still not there as yet. It is an image problem. I think it's going to shift, especially with the approval and the process is going to happen. And the last one comment I will make a general and then we'll open up for questions and answers is that will blur boundaries between what I call know-how industry skills, vocational, technical, and engineering, and know-why industries or theory. That is what I would call knowledge industries. In the management area, we only teach the knowledge. We do not teach hands-on things. We might have some experiential learning by having internships, for example, or living cases that we bring in the classroom, visiting, but actually know-how means how to do everything. So more and more management curriculum after graduation, like the PGP programs in India, will have a huge, what I would call vocational component. Do you know how to write an advertisement in marketing? Do you know how to create a campaign physically? HR, do you know how to practice HR if you're in the HR? Supply chain, actually doing just like in engineering. So skill set as well as the knowledge set begins to blend together, especially will be impact in the engineering colleges, like the IITs, for example, more so than maybe in the management, but it's going to happen where how to will become more respected in India. So those are the 5 major changes I see happening with the policy. Not all of them will happen at the same time, but there will be movement. One will be leading the others. And among the more quick changes, given that under the coronavirus, COVID-19, we already are now teaching online everything. So my view is that I think online will become more mainstream as we go together. I do want to add that the document is intentionally written to allow an institution to decide their own future. Do you want to be a teaching institution or do you want to be a research institution? Very wisely, the government has set up a new foundation, National Research Foundation, which is similar to National Science Foundation here or National Research Foundation in China, which has been a key agency to increase research, new knowledge creation, because teaching is knowledge dissemination. Textbooks are not research papers. So how do you encourage new knowledge creation in India? Very major initiative. Compared to other countries in the world, India is lagging there in some ways, although we have all the capabilities. And ultimately, in that student-centric approach I mentioned, there's a very strong belief system, and I totally agree that we need to produce in management and in engineering or professional occupations a student who is holistic. For example, I strongly believe that management education without liberal arts is only partial knowledge. Or in the old days, BCom degree where you start with undergraduate, start with primarily accounting, and all you know is just accounting. You pass the CA exam, which is fine, but you have no knowledge of the rest of the world. Today, a human being has to know surroundings pretty much, has to have values behind. So I very strongly believe liberal arts has to be blended into management, blended into law, blended into engineering. So make a holistic human being. And I also agree with the policy document very explicitly that we may have some ancient knowledge which may have more contemporary value. If people like Sadhguru, Baba Ramdev can become so popular in the Western world, And Buddhism spreads enormously in the Western world. Today, people are practicing yoga every place, meditation. There must be some benefit in improving you as a holistic human being. Why abandon all those knowledges that we have? And we are actually world class. Bring that into contemporary world to make a human being more holistic from a values viewpoint and some of the traditional practices. So I believe we are moving in the right direction. I like the simplicity of the document. This is the least complicated. It's written for an average person as opposed to academic scholars. And that part I liked quite a lot. It's very written in simple language and has lots of potential, especially inviting many foreign universities to come in India. So I will stop here and pick up any questions you have.
Before we move ahead on this end, I'd like to inform all the attendees that Professor Sheth has kindly agreed to answer questions from the participants, and you are please requested to type in your questions in the chat box and we can take up the questions from there. But moving ahead to start off with the discussion, Professor Sheth, you had mentioned about online learning. So do you opine that online learning can be a perfect substitute for classroom learning, or do they have different roles, or how do they coexist?
To me, it is an imperfect substitute, not a perfect substitute. It is imperfection because while learning is possible, social encounters and social engagement may not be the same. However, I do believe it's a matter of time before it will get equalized. Students come to the campus, like IIM Ranchi, for example, to also understand from each other peer group socialization. They are at that age where a very formative life has taken place. Whether they go to IIT as freshmen in the class or starting from high school, or they come to PGP programs like IIM. I think for the first time, we are going to say learning is not the same as socialization. So how do we separate socialization where student activities are not part of the course? Can we create a divergence between the two? And we are all experimenting. Our students right now are absolutely wanting to be on the campus. But given the coronavirus, social distancing, the infection cleaning of the facility, etc., allows only to use about 25 or 30% of the capacity, which is very interesting. So our live experiment is the following. One of my colleagues teaches a very popular class for MBAs. He has 57 students, and he told me he goes to the university because we allow the MBA class to be, graduate class to be on the campus. And he says only 3 students show up physically. Think about that. So to learn classroom curriculum, distance learning is fine. But to meet, most of the students have no place to meet except in India. We are very blessed because IIM Ranchi has a residential campus. All students have to live in the dormitories. So they can walk and talk with each other. They might use the facilities for their projects, etc. Ours are more like commuter campuses, except for the first year undergraduate. So that's the background. Now I'll talk about the positive side. I think actually distance learning or remote learning will become the mainstream. What is complementary or peripheral today will become the core, and meeting in person will become complementary. It's a very powerful movement. It is quite possible that I can add more things. Ultimately, virtual world becomes more real than the real world. I can do enormously things. So for example, I can have access to content online anytime. We are already doing what we call the flipping the class, where I don't have to go in the class to do the lecture because half of the students are not paying attention anyhow in the classroom. I cannot monitor, but when I put it on my Canvas platform, I know exactly how much they watched, when they watched. Student accountability to pay attention is high. I can use my class then for discussion. More critical thinking rather than taking notes, for example. And at that age, and our students in India at IIM Ranchi are still young. Ours would be like late 20s, yours will be early 20s, for example. And therefore, having note-taking, they can always do it. And so to me, flipping the class is already, we are all experimenting pretty much. Overall, I will tell you, I'm a strong advocate of adopting the digital technology or virtual technology. And I also believe that artificial will become more real. Now, if you think we are struggling with the issue, publishers are struggling even more. Remember the days when we had the textbook, as we even today have it printed copy, and then we complement with some video, YouTube things or case studies, etc. Next textbooks will be video textbooks only. So each chapter is a video chapter, relatively short in length, maybe 15 minutes of that chapter education, and then it is complemented by a print medium. Totally opposite. It's already happening pretty much. So most of the textbooks in print will be declining. They will be publishing 50% less copies. India is slightly exception, but for us, everything is going not only digital copy of the textbook, but it will become more video centric. And once it goes video centric, it has an enormous power. So I'm in for remote learning, or at least digital learning, if not remote learning, okay?
Thank you, Professor Seth. So, moving beyond the online learning, let's think of a world where we go back to classrooms. And a key part of any classroom or an integral part of any classroom is the educator or the professor who teaches in the classroom. And moving into this discussion, we know that a lot of Indian academicians have moved abroad and they have excelled extremely well in foreign universities and foreign institutions.
Yes.
So, Professor Seth, do you think that this education policy will also encourage them to come back home or come and teach in Indian institutions, or do they move back?
Excellent question. Excellent question. There are two answers. They're already coming back home virtually. Given that they couldn't travel right now, they're teaching classes sitting in their homes or offices. So it's already happening. As the technology gets more mature, like the Zoom technology or Canvas technology, they don't have to physically come, but they can be visiting professors at two campuses, the campus in America or in Australia or in England or in continental Europe, and they have a second appointment in India. I want to re-emphasize that once you go online, your capacity for the professor expands enormously. I don't need as many professors for each of the campuses. So if I'm a multi-campus institution, let's say Narsi Munji or IMT Ghaziabad, they have 3-4 campuses, and one professor from the campus can teach simultaneously into 3 other campuses. We never realized that this technology will expand the capacity to reach more students located, etc., could be backed by, in fact, if it's non-residential. So that's clearly one. Your question is a little more coming back permanently, physically, and here are the ways that it's going to happen. One very likely scenario is that as foreign universities, mostly European, British, American, Australian, Canada, and I'll talk about that in a moment, their faculty will be deputed to teach in India as they expand themselves, their India presence. I'm a case in point. I went to MIT intentionally to join as a faculty because originally first IIM was Calcutta with a joint collaboration with MIT, where IIM Calcutta had no faculty till they recruited, like IIM Ahmedabad with Harvard. I joined MIT with the expectation that one semester I will teach in Cambridge, Massachusetts, other semester I'll be teaching in Kolkata. So if the more foreign campuses come here, for whatever reason they come, they will encourage their faculty to physically go there on those campuses and teach. And if you're of Indian origin, it is very likely you will do it. So you will be going back and forth on a regular basis, but it's a permanent solution, like the ISB has done with visiting faculty. But this is foreign faculties investing in India, and I'll talk about that. Second approach is many of the faculty are going back of Indian origin primarily because to take care of their aging parents. There is nobody else to take care of them. They want to be nearby. It's very agonizing. You are 10,000 miles away and something happens to the parents and you have to rush go in an emergency, try to manage the situation. Unfortunately, our old system of joint living, extended family, there is no support like that anymore, in metro areas especially. So given that situation, many senior professors, after getting a retirement in America, are saying that, can I also now go to India permanently because I have a good income coming from retirement? And our income is pretty good in terms of retirement income, actually. I almost 75% of my wages, which are pretty high, now I can have a second appointment, second life. But in India, that's the second reason why they will come. The third reason to attract them is primarily having some mission. Does IIM Ranchi have a mission that is so important to the nation, to the institution, and to the individual? And the individual says, just like they do in the faith-based things, you put 1 or 2 years of time, you go and come there as a mission, but you stay there longer period of time. Very common in humanities, very common in engineering, not as common in management. We have never thought about mission-driven appointments. We think about a traditional way of appointing the faculty. So overall, I'm quite optimistic, given the education policy reform at a national level, given more flexibility given to the institutions to do what they can do, what they would like to do, more optimistic that more people will come from abroad, of Indian origin especially, into India. Okay. My academy that I created, the intention was the following. In my generation, we had no opportunities to do research in India. So we had to go abroad. Today, the whole world wants to do research on emerging markets. There's no better emerging market to do research than India. And especially now, since we are getting so much online through cellular telephone, we have databases after databases. I can mine those databases and publish in the top international journals while being in India. So the rest of the world wants to come to India to do research, and we in India are not embracing that research. So on the research collaboration, I will see people coming to India because this is a gold mine of information and a new knowledge creation opportunity. We have people in marketing that do that I know. I don't know about the other disciplines, but it's very common happening that way. I'm sorry to give a long answer.
No, that definitely is answers a lot of related questions as well. But moving back to your introductory speech where you talked about the multidisciplinary approach and an interdisciplinary approach. So this is a question also put forward by one of our attendees, Mr. Srinivas, and it's also a question which we are confused in India at the moment as how do we implement this interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary approach in traditional technical educational institutions such as an IIT or an IIM, and where do we go from here? Is the goal of the NEP to establish multidisciplinary universities, or do we see multidisciplinary technical institutions in the future?
I think multiple technical universities is very likely. Very likely IITs will have to take a lead because most of the universities in America in engineering began as technical institutions. In fact, vocational technical almost. I'll give you the names. Carnegie Mellon was an institute. It became a university. It added more than engineering disciplines, and in some of the other disciplines, they're world class. In cognitive psychology, Carnegie Mellon may be one of the leading in the world. They produced people like Herbert Simon in management, for example. But the cognitive psychology is a very strong discipline, which would not happen if they had remained strictly Carnegie Institute of Technology as a vocational technical. California Technology, Caltech as it is called, is another institution. It has broadened out from being an engineering. MIT, where I taught, is the same thing. Started as primarily engineering, but MIT Management School is definitely ranked among the top 5 in the, maybe 10 at best in the country, which is a very high bar. because of the enormous number of very good universities in management we have in America. So in the technical engineering-based universities, it is very likely that they will go from single discipline to multiple disciplines. If you look at the history of all those, especially University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, the engineering still dominates. Purdue University in Indiana, for example, again, basically an engineering university, where the management seems to be not to the same level of excellence as, let's say, chemical engineering or software engineering, whatever it is. And this is the same problem at Georgia Tech. You find the same thing, for example. So an university, if it's an engineering one, has to decide how to go out of its way to encourage a very strong liberal arts college, which most of them have, and a very strong business school. Today, for the first time, business schools are becoming as much a necessity for engineering colleges because that 2 extra years of management education makes their student much more marketable, more valuable to the society, a social purpose, etc. So they are now investing significantly in the management education, which they did not do at one time. So you have that. You have the liberal arts colleges, on the other hand, same thing, are finding that humanities and liberal arts is not sufficient for job opportunities. Why should liberal arts students go to some other institution? Why not we offer them an MBA or a PGP or whatever they can do? So the second area where this is likely to become interdisciplinary would be colleges of liberal arts. Now in India, liberal arts are not at a university level, they're standalone colleges. So there will be some architecture where a university system is created. We already have it, like Madras University or Bombay University. They have all those colleges. The document clearly tries to say creates a major single entity, if possible, several entities with multiple disciplines. So those are the two management institutes like IIM Ranchi, IIM Ahmedabad, IIM Calcutta, IIM Bangalore will find that they will probably do less of a interdisciplinary expansion, except those disciplines which become foundational for management education. And there, I believe liberal arts is the key platform. Not just having a part-time historian, because management has a history also, but having a whole discipline, which is now will be determined by the ASCSB accreditation body quite a lot, not just the UGC or at the undergraduate level. It's very likely that we will blend the liberal arts and business. So we'll be expanding at least into the liberal arts, maybe into some liberal arts is what I would use as a word, and social sciences. We do depend on economics quite a lot. We do depend on statistics quite a lot. We do depend on psychology quite a lot. How can we have those foundational things similar to medical school, where first 2 years is just foundational knowledge of biology and science and all that stuff. Then you do clinical practice. Business schools got organized on the wrong assumption that we are like a social science. Our MBA programs behave more like we are social sciences because of the economics tradition, sociology tradition. We are much closer to a medical school, much closer to a law school, much closer to engineering, where we have to do things by hand. And to me, that is lacking quite a lot. So there's a whole opportunity to change. But I think management institutions will either have collaborations, where you have an engineering college, world-class, let's say IIT Ranchi, and you have the IIM Ranchi, combining together, partnering with each other. Rather than being under one umbrella, it can just partner. We partner with Georgia Tech. We don't have a medical school. I mean, we have a medical school, I'm sorry, at Emory, world-class. Georgia Tech has no medical school, but they're brilliant engineering, ranked #1 in many disciplines. So they don't want to go into medical school, so expensive. So we have a joint program, basically called bioengineering, 5 years program, which is now ranked #1 in the world. They started the program, very fascinating. So inter-universities or inter-institutions in the same location will learn to collaborate and share classes. At the doctoral level, we don't have enough strength, number of students, So we do that thing. So when we offer a doctoral program at Emory University in business or in marketing, Georgia Tech students, Georgia State students can come. They're in the same city, as well as UGA, which is a little distance away in Athens. All doctoral students can take this class, and it is counted toward all universities. When Ajay Kohli teaches marketing theory class at Georgia Tech, our students go there. So there will be more cross student enrollment and acceptance as credit, especially at the doctoral student level, where I think there are just not enough numbers to teach a doctoral student otherwise. So things like that will happen more. But unfortunately, I think management institutions will be laggards in terms of becoming interdisciplinary universities.
Yes, as we move towards almost the end of the discussion, we have a slightly philosophical question from Professor Sakshi here at IIM Ranchi, and she asks more from a perspective of a layman, that do you think that the NEP would bring tangible benefits to the society as a whole, and then also do you think that it will create more equality in the society, or basically better life for the person?
The answer is yes and no, unfortunately. The answer is yes in terms of the stated policy in the document that the GEP, gross enrollment, numbers, has to go from 28.3% in 2018 to 50% or so in 2030. That will be very doable because education will go to where students are. Students don't have to come to where educational institutions are through remote learning. SWAYAM program right now is very important to understand in management. This is what I know is in management. IIM Bangalore has become the hub. IIM Bangalore has the edX platform, which is MIT, Harvard, but open architecture now. So they've created their own platform. You can create a course online, distance learning. IIM Bangalore has to approve because of the quality, technical, and all the stuff. And now it reaches out through SWAYAM to 5,000 colleges, all online. And therefore, if you take 5,000 colleges and each college having 1,000 students, think about how many students are accessible. They don't have to come to a bigger city nearby. And most of these are in relatively remote locations, not villages, but near villages, essentially. Very successful. I was told at the beginning of January 2020, before COVID, IIM Bangalore had 1 million management students. That's mind-boggling. In management, we never think numbers like that. So it is now a collaborative effort where IIM Bangalore is the quality certifier, like an accreditation. Any institution can create a course, offer it through that platform that goes to SWAYAM. Students take it, and then SWAYAM platform, they require students to take a physical examination at centers, just like we do with SAT, undergraduate, or GMAT for MBS kind of stuff. And that's where the problem is, because these people have no transport to a nearby testing center. If the government allows now testing to be done online, not worrying about the fraud and all the stuff that takes place on online education, or provide more security toward that, it will have a large number of students with very latest knowledge possible, because those college teachers are basically having knowledge of yesterday, not knowledge of today. And let me add one more point. Half-life of knowledge across all disciplines is declining very rapidly. In software, it is down to 18 months. I studied 50 years ago, more than 55. I plateaued at Fortran 2. I was just excited to learn Fortran 4. Today's young people have no idea what COBOL is or Fortran is. Think about that. And we thought engineering is invariant. By the way, people are shook up that physics is not the same anymore. People are questioning Einstein and Newton. With more discoveries about the galaxies out there, we are questioning everything we know. Half-life of knowledge in management, which is what I'm talking, is down to about 18 months also. Just time when we graduate a student, half of the knowledge they studied is obsolete because new knowledge has come so fast. There's e-commerce, artificial intelligence, we have no idea. So I have recommended personally in the MBA program in America to AICSB, our courses as core courses, first year MBA, first term at least in India, we have 3 terms, we have 2 terms, whatever. For example, 2 courses in behavioral sciences, 2 courses in quantitative sciences, 2 courses in economic sciences. Those are for yesterday's industrial economy. For the knowledge economy, one should have a course on data mining. Compulsory, every student has to know how to do data mining. Has to know completely, in fact, coding, surprisingly. Very different. Core requirements will change dramatically, and the agency that will create that requirement will be AICSB, accreditation body. They have changed that, for example, by adding strategy, which became a discipline eventually. They added internationalization, which became a requirement at least or something. I think it's very fascinating. So we are looking at the accreditation agencies in America and in Europe to bring about a shift in our core knowledge. Every MBA student or PGP student has to have, which is the knowledge for the future, not knowledge for yesterday. Which is why this IIM, they're bringing the latest knowledge that possible, package it and put it on a online with the edX platform. It's absolutely incredible. And by the way, it is reaching all over the world. So I'm such a positive thing about India. We do generate great knowledge. We just have now put emphasis on knowledge generation. Indian Statistical Institution is world class. Top statisticians would rather come to Calcutta in hot, humid, mosquito-infected place and learn from us. We have to recognize we have tremendous capability in India itself. All of Africa and East Europe is waiting for us if we do distance learning. So we have to have a global mindset to say, so IIM Bangalore, I'm told, reaches so many nations, and IIM Bangalore has so many alliances with universities, colleges. So our teachers can go on their campuses rather than their teachers coming to our campuses where we can learn. So there's a huge possibility. I think that will serve the society very well by taking every possible human being who has a potential to realize their potential. And it will make it more affordable at the same time. So watch Swayam. I think it's a great experiment going on besides IGNU. And I think IGNU has crossed, last time I talked to the person, has crossed about 4 million or 5 million students across all disciplines. I mean, I can learn culinary arts from IGNU and I can get a PhD in philosophy. I mean, to talk about the diversity or the variability, truly interdisciplinary single institution, which is again thing you have to watch if you're in the online area. So overall, I'm much more optimistic about how this will serve the society.
Thank you, Professor Sheth. We have a question from Professor Mohapatra who would like to ask a question. Please.
Yeah. Hello.
Yes, please. Hello, how are you?
I'm doing good, sir. It's really a pleasure to have you invest your time with us. Sir, in India, you know, there are execution challenges. And so with all this multidisciplinary course, what you explained so beautifully, what is the incentive or disincentive to be implemented or to be enforced so that, you know, we don't go out of gear? That means things are quite good on paper. So what should be done to enforce it?
Yeah, there are 3 mechanisms. One is to whatever you want to go in direction, the policy people have gives incentives to do it. To the institution, not necessarily to the faculty. And therefore institution director or owners in many cases say, wow, there is an economic benefit of what I'm doing, not just social service. So it's not just a non-profit business, it is a business where I have a surplus at least. So that may be one approach. We think incentives given by the government would be a very key factor in sort of steering the market economy in some fashion. So I can have a market forces take advantage of market opportunities, but I can steer it. That's clearly one. Second one is we are strongly recommending in India that Indian industry has not invested enough in R&D and in innovation. Who said it's the responsibility of the government to create fundamental knowledge? Bell Labs has led so many Nobel Prizes. It was a private company or part of AT&T. IBM Labs, they all compete for government innovative research proposals, and they compete as well with universities, and sometimes universities lose those accounts because the capability lies with these R&D labs of Motorola, for example, Texas Instruments, Xerox at one time, and now the newer ones are, of course, Google Labs, and Microsoft and Facebook kinds of guys. So our corporations have to really add significant investment in the R&D. Our corporations grew as trading companies, please, just like in Hong Kong and China. We were a trading nation. After their independence, government incentivized to say we can manufacture in India. So many of these corporate houses became manufacturers. Tata's may be the exception. So whether you look at Aditya Birla Group, whether you look at any other group, they're basically trading. Reliance is a classic case. So they bypassed that whole R&D cycle. It's very possible today that a university has not only government incentives, but working in collaboration with corporations can come out with world-class linkage to realize the potential. It is happening in pharmaceutical or healthcare. Right now it is happening in India. I know quite a lot of instances where companies are in alignment with academic institutions to come out with breakthrough new knowledge that's in public health right now, for example. So that's a second major approach you can create, where some sort of a partnering with industry allows you to have a steady flow of students going to that industry or company for that matter, because the industry is so strategic to the nation, not just the government, like ISRO, for example, or Bharat Electronics or something like that. But these are the industries all basically driven by private sector. And state enterprises are actually very, very important because they have a scale, so one can align with them. The third one is individual faculty members, which is where I think the institution has to provide some way of motivating the faculty to stay and be research productive. Ultimately, we join academic world for our own identity. If you join a corporation, you don't have an identity. You are a manager, you are a worker, you are a factory worker, service worker, etc. Maybe CEO, you get an identity, but how many CEOs of companies do we know? Except those who are in the news, or maybe Jack Welch creates his own personality. Corporations do not create individual identities of their workers. We do. So what can the institution do, especially research-oriented, where my identity is created by my institution, which is good for me? It's good for me for mobility. I can be recruited by any other because I'm doing so well research-wise. My institution invests in me for me to be mobile. Isn't that fascinating? We think the opposite. But in the process, if my institution is good for me, creating value, my potential out, not as a student, but as a faculty, I'm more likely to stay. I've stayed longer at some institutions and much shorter at other institutions because I saw whether the institution is investing in me or they're just using me for their own agenda. That's the third thing for execution is very important. Now, I will tell you still execution will not be very good because we do have fundamental infrastructure issues. As we have in America, I find it absolutely incredible, one of the best nations in the world who invented the internet today, when the school children go back home, about 25% of the people have no network connectivity. And about the same numbers, overlapping, have no laptops. And they're sent home. And that's just absolutely incredible to hear that story happening in every place in America. Every state has that problem. Because the lower disadvantaged people never could afford an internet at home, even a Wi-Fi. So we are innovating. School buses are there because they have to bus it. So school buses are now becoming Wi-Fi centers after picking children up or whatever it is. Children don't come to the school. So school buses go in the neighborhood, provide a Wi-Fi, and around that Wi-Fi, students simply congregate and do the research for their learning. So to me, we are in a cell phone age. We are much faster, much earlier compared to the advanced countries which are PC based. And to me, we can move much faster in universal connectivity, especially with Reliance Jio, for example, or the 5G architecture that comes in. So I think the connectivity is a key bottleneck in terms of making execution wherever we would like to, but it's going to happen. I'm sorry, again, long answer. I need to stop giving longer answer.
Thank you, really.
Thank you, Professor Sheth. We unfortunately have to move to the end of the event. We like to ask the Honorable Director if he has any comments.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Professor Sheth. Great words of wisdom. What I gathered as central points that our education policy is suggesting that we need to be student-centric and we have to be knowledge creators in new generation. And good point that ancient knowledge, if it is of contemporary relevance, that should be adopted. And digitization of learning that has come of the age, and that is the present, and we should be encouraging people to develop the curriculum which is future centric rather than past centric. So this is my understanding of what you have said. Thank you.
Thank you. I did want to add one comment.
Yeah.
The more likely international universities will come from Canada. Watch Canada.
Yeah.
Very important.
That's
And partly because during the vibrant Gujarat days, there were a lot of Canadian vice chancellors and presidents of universities strongly motivated by the government to think about India. And now with the new policy document, I expect Canada has very good universities.
Yeah.
And they will come first because they're more eager to do business in India. I think with the new Australian distancing from China, Australia is very big in education. It's a good industry for them. And they need an alternative to China and Chinese students. And again, the same thing, rather than have students come to Australia, they will probably come themselves on the campus in Australia. So watch Australia, watch Canada, watch England, because Brexit is real now, no matter what. And in fact, with a no-deal Brexit, it looks like, which means Britain is going to definitely align with America in a big way, and the other side would be India. You will see enormous geopolitical interest by the British economy toward India. And education-wise, we are very comparable because both were started by UGC approach the same. So there's more understanding each other. So I would watch the British and United Kingdom as a third major country. America would be a laggard. We have so many issues about doing business abroad from our viewpoint. We have issues about accreditation here. We have issues about faculty wanting to teach over there, except in humanities, where we have a huge surplus of talented faculty, brilliant minds, and they are more willing to go. Distance learning may allow them, but I would rather watch Canada, rather watch Australia, New Zealand in some fashion, and I would rather watch England and maybe Netherlands as lead indicators about foreign universities and the way they come to India and do business.
Good.
My last comment, okay? Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, okay?
Thank you, Professor Sheth. Thank you, Respected Director, sir. It was my privilege to be the moderator for the event. And now I hand over to Professor Mishra.
Okay.
Thank you, Professor Azarika. honor for us to host you this webinar, and I privileged to present vote of thanks. I thank all the speakers, especially key speakers of the day, state, and respected Dr. Professor Karan Singh and respected Mr. Dayan Shah. It's an honor to have you on this webinar. We thank you from the core of our heart and provides enlightenment about national education policy as well as Academy of Indian Marketing. I especially like the way Sheth sir has explained this national education policy. Thankfully, sir, it was not as complicated as justice, so we could understand it clearly, all the important implications and impact of Indian society. As I told you earlier, I was also there as visiting scholar in University of Toledo. So I really like to have such kind of multicultural ambience in the US University, my university. Where, sir, in my institute at Toledo, one Iranian was the head of department. One Jamaican was professor who was also my mentor, and students were mainly for Middle East. So I was so when we have such kind of ambience in Indian scenario also, in India also. Now, thanks to this education policy, we think that that day may come true, that day may come as a reality. And so far as the research is concerned, you rightly said that we'll have more research, more innovation in India. Otherwise, I think that now we will move from I imitation to I innovation. So that is something which we are looking for.
Yeah.
And sir, finally about interdisciplinary, I know many students of ours who are very good at liberal arts as well as fine arts. So can we also provide the training in liberal arts and fine arts along with management? So that will not only enhance their skill sets, that will also make a good experience and enjoyable learning for them. And sir, we belong to marketing, and in marketing, these two E's, engagement, experience, matter more than anything else. So I hope that because of multidisciplinary approach, we'll have more engagement and better experience for students also. So thanks for such kind of explanation of national education policy. And I also thank our respected director, sir, Professor Karan Singh, for his consistent encouragement to this center. And thank you, Mr. Jain Shah, for explaining Academy of Indian Marketing. I have been in touch with Professor Versa Jain there in MICA. We are having collaboration in research, and she has been consistently, discussing about the importance of AIM State Consortium. And I really liked all those ideas, and I wish that, I too will be part of such kind of venture. So thank you, speakers. Thank you, all the participants. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.